Sri Lanka has become the first Southeast Asian country in 2022 unable to pay its foreign debt. This totals $51 billion.
Even during the war, we didn't face such an economic challenge.
The sanctions imposed by Western countries against Russia have brought this island nation to its knees. Oil prices have skyrocketed, as have petrol, medicine and food.
Fertilizer price has gone up 200%.
Thousands of people took to the streets, and this is just the beginning. A similar scenario could unfold in Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan and other Asian countries in Africa.
Где толстый сохнет, там худой дохнет. Вот это самое происходит в Шри-Ланке сейчас.
It's the same old Western trap. Victims swallow the bait. It could be an individual, an industrial company, or even an entire country. First, you'll lend money, and then you have to pay it back, with huge interest.
Our partners are very excited to welcome U.S. enhanced economic engagement with the region.
We know the West can industrialize any country they want. They've done it with Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, all for geopolitical reasons. Now they do it with Eastern Europe. Same, exactly the same. Whenever they want to, they can do it. When they don't want to, they block it.
Есть мнение американских политологов, что именно Индийский океан станет центральной ареной противостояния в 21 веке.
Sri Lanka is paralyzed. Tens of thousands have gathered in front of the Presidential Administration Building on this square in the capital of Colombo. It's become a kind of tent city where the protesters sleep, cook, chant and await change.
This is the main protesting place in this Gota Go Home village. That means Gota Go Home village. We came here on April 9th, and this is the 22nd day of this struggle.
Gota is a shortened version of President Gotabaya's name.
Main three reasons for this economic crisis currently in Sri Lanka. The first thing is the COVID crisis. That's the starting place. The second thing is the Russian-Ukraine war period, because our export market is hugely placed in Russia, so we lost that market. The third fact is the mismanagement of this government. When all the reasons come join with one, the people are in a deep crisis.
Sri Lanka's example clearly shows the global economy isn't a set of rules that produces a single correct policy. It's impossible to punish one country with sanctions without hurting the interests of others. The embargo on oil from Russia immediately increased energy costs. Sri Lanka isn't able to pay the new price set by the West. And bypassing sanctions is risky. You're liable to be sanctioned yourself.
Получился такой идеальный шторм. Потому что, с одной стороны, совпали накопления внешнего долга, с другой стороны, высокие цены на топливо, такой эффект лавины.
But what has compounded it more is the price of diesel has gone up significantly. As you know, there is a shortage of diesel even in the United States. There is a shortage of diesel in many countries.
I think Sri Lanka has no choice now but to actually directly buy Russian oil and gas, in my view, you know, and bypass the sanctions just like India is doing.
After Russian ships were banned from entering ports, wheat supplies were severely cut. Exports almost halved, which immediately undermined the country's food security. Disconnecting Russian banks from the SWIFT payment system has impacted the tourism industry. Today, the Sri Lankan budget is hemorrhaging billions of dollars. In In the recent past, Sri Lanka suffered a civil war when Tamil separatists tried to create their own independent state. They were defeated at the cost of 80,000 lives. These are former Sri Lankan army soldiers who fought in the civil war. Heroes. But now they're barely making ends meet. Today, they question the great sacrifices they made.
මොකද මට ආසාවක් තිබුණා විශේෂ බලකායක තමයි මම රාජකාරී කරන්න කියලා. මොකද මේ ඒ මගේ හිතේ තිබුණ ගැම. හැබැයි මම රටට යම් සේවාවක් කරන්න ඕන කියන හැඟීම තිබුණා. ඒ එක්කම මේ රටේ යුද්ධය අනිවාර්යෙන් ඉවර වෙලා අපේ රට නිදහස් වෙන්න ඕන කියන පරමාර්ථයෙන් තමයි අපි හමුදාවට ගියේ. ඒකම අපේ තිබුණ දුප්පත්කම ඒවට බලපෑවා.
The war ended in 2009. And former soldiers don't want to see their nation mired in civil conflict again. Things used to be simple. They fought against a terrorist group, partly funded by Western countries.
තවාදී විසින් අපේ සිවිල් මිනිස්සු කම්මාන වැදිලා වෙල්ල කපලා ඒ වගේ දේවල් කරත්
Today, it's ordinary people who are suffering from the sanctions imposed on Russia and its resulting economic meltdown.
ඉන්සක දුප්පත් මිනිහට ජීවත් වෙන්න බැරි පරිසරයක් නිර්මාණය කරේ මේ දේශපාලන පාලකයෝ විසින්. ඒ නිසා මේ අපි ඇත්තටම මේ දේශපාලනය විසින් කරපු හොරකම් වලට
Yes, I'm driving to 16 years in the driving tuk-tuk. I am Sri Lankan, the whole place going to Sri Lanka tuk-tuk, yeah.
Sivanu is a motor rickshaw driver. He lives in a village like millions of others. If they have a job, they can keep going. But everything's changed now. The transport system has all but collapsed. The country's out of petrol, which means no more income. That's why Sivanu has also joined the protest.
බඩු මලම් පට්ටම් ගණන් දැන් ආල්ලෙම 220යි කිලෝක 240 220යි කීම දෙන්නේ. සාමාන්‍ය කොටක් අමාරු තමයි ජීවත් වෙන්නේ.
ගාන දැන් 400 කිරිපිටි එක 850යි. කිලෝ එකක් ගන්නවා නම් 2500යි. ඒක නිසා ළමයිට කිරි දෙන්න බෑ.
Sivanu's family is running out of food and they don't know what they'll do. The same goes for their neighbours. In fact, all villagers and residents of all villages and towns in Sri Lanka are in the same boat.
පෙට්‍රෝල් පොලිමක් ඉන්න ඕනේ. පැය ගානක් ඉඳලා දැන් පෙට්‍රෝල් ලීටර් දෙකක් විතර තුනක් ගාගන්න ඕනේ. දැන් තුනක් ගානවා නම් 1020ක් ඕනේ. ඉස්සලා නම් එහෙම නෑ රුපියල් 117ක් තියෙද්දි කොට ලීටරයක් ගාගත්තා නම් ගවන්න තිබුණා. දැන් පෙට්‍රෝල් පිච්චන එකත් වැඩිනේ. ඒ හින්දා පොඩ්ඩක් يعني ගොඩක්ම අමාරුයි. ඒ කියන්නේ ගෑස් ගන්න බෑ, ගෑස් එකක් ගන්න බෑ. ගෑස් එක 5200 ගණක් තියෙනවා දැන් ගන්න බෑ ඒක. කීයද? 800. පෙට්‍රෝල් ලීටර් දෙකක් ගන්නම 800ක් හොයන්න ඕනේ. ඊළඟට තේ එකක් බොන්න. ගෙදරට මොනවද කිසින්ද හොයාගන්න අමාරුයි දැන් ඉස්සල්ලාගේ කියන්නේ. ගොඩක්ම අමාරුයි ඉන්නේ මේ තත්ත්වයේ පාවලා දින්නේ දෙන්න.
ඒ රසාවට යන්න විදියකුත් නැහැ මට ළමයි දාලා යන්න.
ළමයි දාලා යන්නද?
Hyperinflation situation. Currently, 117% of inflation in this country. So people try to resist in different ways. Some are shouting, some are screaming by saying slogans. Some are weaving banners. The big banner in the middle of the road. That means give our stolen money back. This government is corrupt. This government stolen people's money. Currently, I am also a victim of this economic crisis. I am jobless. In previous month, I paid 10,000. Normally, currently 10,000 rupees for my mother's health medicines. Now I can't pay them. You can see police in behind this barrier. They are protecting Gotabaya Rajapaksa's presidential office. they are placing there and we are placing here. We never been shouting to them. We know someday they are joining with us. We know that because in near future, government will lose the money to pay their salary. If they shoot at us, I will go to the front line. Definitely I will go to the front line. Because I don't want this issue coming to the next generation. If it ends here, if it ends with me. If it ends with me.
One of the biggest hurdles that we have in terms of fuel purchasing is the cost of crude oil and other fuels in the market. The main reason behind this is the Russian and the Ukraine conflict going on right now. And Russia is one of the biggest exporters to the world in oil.
Вся нефть и весь газ завозится в Шри-Ланку, и чем выше цены на топливо, тем сильнее ланкийский кризис.
We should try and borrow this from the international capital markets, which could make our problem even worse because we won't be able to meet those international debt obligations.
A chronicle has been started about the momentous upheavals in Sri Lanka. One of its founders documents everything that's happening online.
Чрезвычайное положение. Главный лозунг «Гота, go home».
His Russian's fluent because he graduated from the People's Friendship University in Moscow. He asked us to call him Roma.
Президент, уйди в отставку. Государство просто, вот весь государственный аппарат, это не только политики, но и чиновники, все они точно превратились.
I know when it's morning and when it's night, that's all.
Государство, то есть вот ворует.
While this goes on, we must also look into why adequate precautions were not taken in this respect.
Каждый, то есть, вот, хочет себе иметь вот свой, как бы, дополнительный, то есть, вот кусок, помимо зарплаты.
Now everything expensive.
Oh, this is a big problem for this country.
What is the government this?
Government need to understand the pulse of the people.
This insensitivity must be crushed.
То, что сейчас происходит на международной арене, да, то есть, это подорожание, то есть, вот, цен на нефть, пшеницу и так далее, то есть, это все, конечно, то есть, сказывается, потому что мы же, то есть, как бы единое сообщество. То есть, вот упасть до такого.
Even tea, a core sector industry, has been affected. Production volumes of Sri Lanka's main export have plummeted and returned to figures of 20 years ago.
On account of the current situation, where, as we know, with the Ukraine-Russia situation and shortage of fertilizer, the prices have gone hugely spiked up.
In the fuel prices going up, when the transportations are getting held up, people are reluctant to buy the teas to send it across to Ukraine and Europe because they are not certain whether the ships will go there.
காம்பு இருந்தா கொழுந்து எடுக்க மாட்டாங்க அதனால கரண்ட் இல்லாம காம்பு இல்லாம இந்த தேயிலை கொழுந்தினால தான் நாங்கள் சாப்பிட்றதே.
Marimutu works at a plantation in the central part of Sri Lanka, where the most premium and expensive tea grows. But she and her family are barely making ends meet.
காலையில் 8 மணிக்கு போகணும் சார் வேலைக்கு. போயிட்டு 20 கிலோ எடுக்கணும். 20 கிலோ எடுக்காட்டி சம்பளத்தில் வெட்டிடுவாங்க. 4 மணி எழுதி 20 கிலோ எடுக்காட்டி சம்பளத்தில் வெட்டிடுவாங்க. இல்லாட்டி பேர் இல்லைன்னு அனுப்பி விட்டுருவாங்க சம்பளம் வெட்டாட்டியும். அதுக்கு பிறகு அட்டை கிடைக்கும், பாம்பு கையில் வெட்டுப்படும், பில்லு பிடுங்கி அது இதெல்லாம் புல்லெல்லாம் பிடுங்கிட்டு தான் இதாக்கணும், அட்டையெல்லாம் கிடைக்கும்.
The protests have raged for several weeks and they're getting stronger every day. The entrance to the President's Secretariat is blocked. Police are holding the line and serious clashes may begin any moment.
you can see there's a person, he's a farmer. He came from Nuwara district to Goldface. There's nearly 250 kilometers. He came by foot. He's demanding fertilizers. We are in a deep economic crisis. No gas, no fuel, no electricity, no medicines, no food. You can see every age group in this struggle. There are children, there are youth, there are elders, all the people. Because our export tea market, our export tea market, the main buyer is Russia and Ukraine, and they are importing products to the Sri Lanka. So that's market is been losing from us. So it's been effective for our foreign exchange, foreign currency market. The European Union and the NATO and the America also should be responsible for this economic crisis in Sri Lanka. They should be responsible for this.
They just close their eyes.
Yeah, they are like deaf people. They are like. Some people come here and they resist because they can't pay their children's tuition fees. Some people they can't pay medicines for their fathers and mothers because just a few days ago, government raised the medicines price by 40%. That's how this economic trouble is. That's how big this economic trouble is. In one side, the fuel prices is rising just like rockets. Before 2-3 weeks ago, the fuel price was like 220. Now it's 330. That's how inflation is now in country. Now we are in third in the world in inflation. This is a. Currently, I am full time in this struggle. I know we can win this fight. We will overcome these issues. Someday we will win this fight. Definitely win this fight.
The leader of the Youth for Change movement always carries a red flag. The hammer and sickle symbol isn't just a reference to the Soviet Union, it's also about social equality and justice. A protest against the monopoly of US financial capital and certain government officials who are criticized for allegedly holding passports of other countries.
They are citizens of America, they are Americans, but they are ruling our country, they are stealing our money. This country is ours, not American people's. How can American people's ruling 20 million people by only one family?
The US is in decline, no doubt about it. And they will scavenge on everyone. I mean, what is happening in the Ukraine, for me, is the US scavenging on Europe. These companies work very closely with the United States. So, we get more and more enmeshed.
Tambili kida ya? Сияй, ne? Вот 100 рублей. Но обычным людям живется довольно тяжело, да. Вот, например, картошка раньше, килограмм стоит где-то 100 рублей, а сейчас полкило стоит 100 рублей. Перестали привозить химические удобрения. И весь сельскохозяйственный сектор, включая производство, да, на порядок, упал. Из-за того, что дизеля не хватает для того, чтобы, привозить эти овощи сюда, в Коломбо и в другие города, с тех мест, скорее всего, положение, это станет катастрофическим, да. Невозможный голод.
Medicine prescribed by Sri Lankan doctors is usually foreign-made and therefore it's all imported. The dollar's sharp rise has decimated supplies.
So many medicines that are used in anesthesia are in shortfall. And then so many items, not only drugs, but items that is required to perform surgeries are in shortfall. You have to make a noise, you have to make a how to get your medicines. This is the way that hospitals are running at the moment in Sri Lanka.
There's still petrol for ambulances, but doctors who live far away from work have to queue for petrol themselves.
இந்த மாதிரி தான் கொழுந்து எடுக்கணும் 3 இலை.
Tea picking is Marimutu's only skill. There was never enough money for her to get an education. She works hard to provide for her children, so they can at least have one meal a day and go to school.
முன்ன உள்ள விலையோட இப்போ சாம விலை கூடனால பிள்ளைகளுக்கு மாவு வாங்கி கொடுக்க சாப்பாட்டுக்கு இது கேட்டதை வாங்கி கொடுக்க ஓட்ட ரொம்ப கஷ்டமாக தான் இருக்கிறோம். ஏன்னா படிப்புக்கு செலவழிக்கணும். அதனால் ஒரு நாளைக்கு 800 சம்பளம். அதில் பான் 3 பாத்திரத்தில் வாங்கி பருப்பு 250 வாங்கினா காசு சரி. அதில் 5 பேர் சாப்பிட சரியாக போயிடும். அதுக்கு பிறகு வேறு சாமான் வாங்கி சாப்பிட்றது காசு இல்லை. இப்போ அதனால் சரியான கஷ்டமாக தான் இருக்குது. பசியில் பிள்ளைகளும் ஒரு நேரத்துக்கு சாப்பாடு கேட்குங்க. அது வாங்கித்தான் இதை வாங்கித்தான் வாங்கி கொடுக்க காசு இருக்காது. அதனால ரொம்ப கஷ்டத்தில் தான் நாங்கள் வாழ்கிறோம்.
Sri Lanka's deep crisis has affected all families. There are fuel, energy and food shortages, and you can lose your job anytime. Only rainwater is in abundance.
கொழுந்து எடுக்கையில் இப்படி அட்டை கடிக்கும், கத்தியில் வெட்டுப்படும். அதெல்லாம் பொருட்படுத்தாமல் தான் வேலை செய்கிறது. நான் எனக்கு கொழுந்து எடுத்து ஆகணுமே.
This is the Pinawala Elephant Orphanage. About 80 animals live here.
මේ කට්ටිය දැන් කැලේට යවන්න නැත්තේ මේ කට්ටිය අනාථ වෙලා කැලෙන් මෙහෙට ගෙනාවු කට්ටිය.
Sometimes their parents abandon them and occasionally poachers leave them behind. The elephants need lots of food. Each consumes up to 76 kilograms of leaves a day.
සාමාන්‍යයෙන් සඳහා අලියෙක් නඩත්තු කරන්න සාමාන්‍ය දිනකට අපිට සාමාන්‍යයෙන් 15000ක රුපියල් 15000ක 20000ක වගේ.
නැත්නම් ලොකු ආහාර ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා මේ කට්ටියට. නැතුවම නෙමෙයි දැන් මේ ගේන කට්ටිය උනත් ගොඩක් මේ මහන්සියලා තමයි ගේන්නේ. හැබැයි මේ ගහක්.
In 2021, twin elephants were born, a first for the orphanage.
ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම දැන් අම්මගෙන් තමයි දැනට කිරි බොන්නේ. අමතර දෙන්නෙක් නිසා අමතර කිරි වේලා දෙනවා.
Sri Lanka's elephant population is around 7,500. Finding food is hard, even for those living in the wild, so there's no guarantee their numbers will remain the same.
Это воронный крик как бы. Капутука, как. Так вот люди посмеиваются над бывшим министром финансов, который был вот родным братом президента и родным братом премьера. Страна полностью зависит от иностранного кредита. Там крайняя нехватка, то есть бытового газа, бензина. Те, которые живут в отдельных домах, то есть и в Коломбо, и в окрестностях, многие перешли на дрова, да. Больше 40% от электроэнергии, то есть, добывается на дизельных станциях. И так как то есть, топлива не хватает, и дизельные станции то есть, время от времени то есть, перестают работать. Беспрерывного электроснабжения тоже в стране нет. Люди среднего достатка впервые в их жизни, то есть, они вышли на улицу вот в знак протеста. Протесты объединили и тамилов, и сингалов, и мавров, мусульман в одну единую команду. Идентичность, как вот LANKA'S, и это создается сейчас. Вот эта страна находилась в течение 300 лет, в зависимости от Голландии и Великобритании. Местные люди за это время потеряли все навыки к самоуправлению.
Sri Lanka is the first country to face such a huge crisis, but apparently it won't be the last. After the West imposed sanctions against Russia, ties between suppliers and consumers were severed, so several other nations risk being sucked under. Bangladesh, Nepal and Pakistan are the top 3 on the list.
Это те страны, которые находятся в состоянии внутренней политической нестабильности, имеют маленькую экономику и очень плотно завязаны на иностранное топливо и на иностранное продовольствие. Создается такая обстановка общей нервозности, общей неопределенности, которая подпитывает кризис все дальше и дальше.
Most of East Asia, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, even Singapore.
Ukraine is an issue, it's an international issue. And most of these third world countries are going to get affected.
IMF takes them to the international capital markets. So, they don't get money, all the money they need from the IMF. The IMF gives them some, restructures their economies, and then says, okay, the rest you have to borrow from the international capital markets that are dominated by American investment companies.
I'm a student of history, and so then, if you're talking about what revolutions are, so you have every component of a revolution.
So I think it has impacted the lives of everyone in Sri Lanka. You have seen the crisis and the shortages.
දැන් දවල්ට ඉවෙපෙන් තමයි තියෙන්නේ බතුයි බෝන්චි පරිප්පු තියෙනවා. දැන් ඒක රැට දෙන්නට කරන්න පුළුවන්. දැන් කිරි දෙන්න විදියක් නැහැ. ඒ නිසා අවසර දෙන්නේ ප්ලේන්ටි තමයි. දෙඩ ප්ලේන්ටි තමයි. කිරි ගන්න විදියක්වත් නැහැ අපිට.
හරි ආසමින් ඉඩමක් තියන් හිටිය ගයක් හදාගන්න. ඒකෙන් ගයක් හදුවා භාගයට. හදලා තියන් හිටියා ඒ වුණාට මේ දැන් ඉන්න තත්ත්වයක හදන්න බෑ. කියන්නේ ඉස්සලා නම් ඉතින් හිටිය ලක්ෂ 5ක් විතරයි කියලා. විනාවිල හිටියට ඒක ඇතුළ තියෙන්නේ හරියට ඉතකමක් තියෙන්නේ හරියට. කියන්නේ කොහොමද කියන්නේ කියලා තේරුම් නැහැ. කියන්නේ කියන්න බෑ ඒක. තේරියෙන්නේ ගයක් හදාගන්න ඕනේ ළමයිට ලස්සට තියාගන්න. We had to announce a technical default because our debt was in a state that we could not manage for the next few installments.